Savvy Business Radio, home to over 500,000 listeners per month, and runs in syndication on 8 AM/FM stations nationwide, including iHeartRadio and 6 podcasting platforms. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or to become a guest and find out how we can help you get your message out in a bigger way, call 732-474-7375 or email Christina@savvybusinessradio.com.
Our first guest today is Nick Arnette, the feel-good funny guy. Nick is a keynote speaker, comedian, master of ceremonies, and auctioneer. Nick has performed for hundreds of groups, including AT&T, Microsoft, and Motorola. Today, Nick shares with us how to use humor effectively in business. Find out more about Nick at nickarnette.com. Our second guest is award-winning musician and songwriter Eddy Mann, who made a decision over 20 years ago to offer his creative gifts to God. Eddy was recently awarded the International Music and Entertainment Association Award for AC Artist of the Year. Eddy shares the importance of using your gifts to better the world. Find out more about Eddy at eddymann.com. Hi, Nick. Welcome to Savvy Business Radio. How are you today?
Hey, Christina. I'm great. And I'm so excited to be on Savvy Business Radio. Wow.
Well, I'm so excited to have you. You're the feel-good funny guy, and we need more funny in our lives and humor, and you help business owners do that, and you've worked at huge seminars and business events and conferences, bringing the gift of humor and what it can do to transform people's lives and businesses. How did you get into this sort of work?
Well, I started out in the world of stand-up comedy about 30 years ago in Denver, Colorado at the Comedy Works. And at that time, guess who was like really breaking out on the scene in Denver at that time? Any ideas?
No.
Roseanne.
Oh, wow. She's from Denver?
Yeah. So I can remember when I was first starting out, I had to follow Roseanne. After she did a killer 20-minute set, I had a beginner's 5-minute set, and I had to go on after her. So that was a good time to study for your bar exam because it was completely quiet for my 5 minutes. It was so fun, though. She was really nice, though. It was great. Too bad. I should have sold the car that I had. I drove all kinds of famous people in that car. I should have sold it for a lot of money because of all the famous people that rode in my car.
Yeah, and you could say that, hey, XYZ people rode in this car.
Yeah.
So what led you to helping businesses and adding humor into their business and helping them that way? How did you get into the business arena?
Well, while I was doing comedy, when I first started, I was a mortgage banker, and I did that for about 4 years because that's how long it takes a loan to be approved, you know. Oh, thank you. But anyway, I still do love the stand-up, but I also like a little deeper. I like having a message along with the laughter. So for me, it fit really well to continue with more work in the business environment, combining humor and motivation, inspiration, content. So for me, it was a pretty natural move. I really do enjoy that.
Yeah, and it's funny because I love flying, and the people who listen to the show, they know that. They're no stranger to my pictures of flying that I take with my partner, who is a certified flight, who's studying to be a certified flight instructor, but he's a commercial pilot and such, and we go out on the weekend, have fun. But one of the best instructors out there is Rob Machado, and he uses humor. It's his main niche, is using humor to get the sometimes very difficult, or I wouldn't say difficult, but there's so much information to learning to fly out there, and it's not really the airplane, it's just everything involved in flying, but he makes it so easy and understandable and makes it connect into your brain by using humor. So humor can be such a wonderful, wonderful tool for really cementing ideas and getting it to stick inside your brain.
Well, exactly, and even research supports that. They've done studies where they had a control group listen to classical music, other listen to some comedy before an exam, and those that listened to the comedy did better. Also, people have memorized, just like the flying. They tend to remember things better when it's done with humor. So, yeah, absolutely. Interestingly enough, and this is really something, just even faking a smile can actually make you feel better. There was a study, and this is really crazy, but they had people tape up their their mouths, so they were in the up smiling position, and they had the control group without the smile, and those that had the smile actually viewed things in a more positive outlook than those who didn't. But I would just love to have a picture of those people in that study. But,
yeah, me too.
yeah. Simpler thing that people can do out there that are listening is very simple. Just there's a pen experiment where people just put a pen in their mouth, which actually makes you lift up. It kind of puts you in the smiling position anyway. And again, people saw things in a more positive outlook when they did that. So even if you're not feeling so great, if you can just make a smile, it will help you feel a lot better. You'll start feeling better, and that can be proven. Also can be proven, people that frown will see things in a more negative light. That is a fact. And I can take it even one step further. The, people that just don't do anything, like they did people with Botox, and actually they were better than the people that frowned because at least they didn't frown. So they were a little bit happier than those who frowned.
Interesting.
So, yes.
And what's bringing to mind for me, Nick, is I wonder if the sensation of flying triggers in your brain or sends endorphins somehow by just doing that in your body, sends signals up to your brain to be happy. Have you read anything about that? I'm just curious. It's interesting.
I would think that there's some endorphin stuff going on when you're flying, because you've got a lot of excitement going on. You're learning, and there's a little bit of a fear factor involved, and I think that can make your body do cool things too. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, wow, that's intriguing. Now, for people out there that frown a lot because life seems so tough and you're seeing everything as being challenging, how do you maintain that great attitude when things don't seem to be going your way? How do you shift your perspective? I mean, you mentioned one right now, which is doing that false smile, which is to bring your body into a more positive state. Is there anything else the audience can do?
Well, there's some really simple things. When something goes wrong, and something goes wrong all the time, probably every day, especially if you're in business. That's generally why we have a job, is because things go wrong, and our job is to fix them, to make things run smoothly. So you ask yourself actually 4 questions. When something goes wrong, ask yourself, what part of this can I do something about? What part of this can I do nothing about? And this one's kind of silly, but it makes sense. How can I keep these negative thoughts and emotions going and get myself even more upset, right? Because some people just dwell on that. And then the 4th thing is your real call to action. At this point, what are my options? Because here's the deal. When you get upset, and friends, I'm going to be honest with you right now. I live in Los Angeles. Lots of construction going on downtown Los Angeles. And the other day I was blocked in a driveway because they were shooting a movie, and movies get precedence here in LA, which is cool. Anyway, I was blocked in, and I had to get somewhere, and I couldn't go. So I was tapping, and I wasn't, stomping on my horn, but I was just tapping it like, hey, I'm blocked in, can you let me out? And I got a little, I was upset. So, and then the guy came by, and then I explained. I didn't yell, but again, I wasn't as nice as I could have been. I was fairly nice, but anyway, I felt kind of embarrassed that I kind of lost it. And here's the thing. I think most of us are good most of the time, but when we fail in the moment. And sometimes those moments can be very, very costly. So that's why we need to be what I call in an active mode, where we're in control of ourselves, rather than a reactive mode. I was in a reactive mode. I was responding based on what was happening around to me, as opposed to being in an active mode where I could have remained calm. I could have gotten out of my car and just say, hey, I need to get around here. I'm sorry. I don't mean to cause any trouble. So I could have handled that better. So I learned from that. And that's another thing, friends out there. When we mess up, let's not beat ourselves up for it. Let's learn from that and do better the next time, right? Because we can't undo that, but we can do better the next time, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this brings to mind for me, Nick, I remember a number of years ago, I had gotten furious at a plane delaying its takeoff. I remember I lost it like you did a little bit, except mine was more than a little bit. And I was really ashamed. But the interesting thing looking back at it is I remember my brain was pumping up of all the what ifs. If I miss this meeting, I'm going to miss this deal, and then I'm going to lose this client, and they're going to tell everyone, and no No one's going to want to work with me. It's like my brain went on this crazy run, 1,000 miles forward into the future of all this what ifs that never happened, that caused me to get in a frantic reactive mode instead of being in control. Do you find that happen for you, or is that something?
Absolutely, and that's why I need to go through these. It's a good thing that I talk about things, because I have to practice what I preach. I don't ever want to be on a video of hey, the guy who talks about having a great attitude, working as a team, keep your sense of humor. Here he is, yelling at somebody. So fortunately, I have that, and I never want that to happen. So I think about the process that I tell everyone else, and it doesn't come naturally, because our natural urge is to react. But here's the thing: we need to be in control of ourselves. And one thing I challenge all the listeners out there to do is to do every single day. Make yourself do something that you don't want to do. It might be you might not want to eat a healthy meal as opposed to something that's really bad for you, or you might not want to exercise as opposed to doing the push-ups or sit-ups that you promised yourself you would do. But just make yourself do something every single day that you don't want to do. Maybe read a chapter of a book. You'd rather watch TV. Every single day, and that tells you tell your body that way that you are in charge. It doesn't tell you what to do. You tell it what to do. And here's something I want everybody to learn, because I just heard it and I want to share it with you. It's easier to act yourself into a feeling than to feel yourself into an action. You like that?
Yeah.
I'm going to.
Okay.
It's easier to act yourself into a feeling than feel yourself into an action. So if you're waiting for yourself to feel like doing it, it's not nearly as likely to happen. Whereas if you get in an active mode and you make it happen, you'll ultimately start feeling better. And you'll feel better about yourself because you did it.
Wow, that is so true. Nick, I started to get myself out there, and one of my favorite forms of exercise is really walking. And I was doing exercise at home or in the gym and feeling kind of depressed. I got to go there. I don't like that place. And I would force myself and drudge myself and not give my full heart and effort into it until I was working with my client. I said, you know what? I'm in beautiful downtown Manhattan here. There's gorgeous sights everywhere. It's nice outside. Why don't I do what I love doing most as far as exercise go and walk? So I said, okay, I'll just walk 20 blocks. And then before you knew it, I had walked, I think, 60 blocks. I had a blast, and I was like, this is awesome. I need to do this more often. So I did it 3 times last week, and I felt awesome when I got home, but it's something I didn't initially want to do. I'm ending the day, I've worked with clients, and I just want to go home, kick my feet up. But it made me feel that much better at the end once I put myself into action, as you called it.
Exactly. And not only that, you can associate it with other things that you like to do. For instance, when I do my walks, I walk 4 or 5 times a week. I listen to podcasts during that time. So I associate it with something real positive, a learning experience along with the exercise. And I really look forward to it, and the walk goes a lot faster.
Yeah. And the same thing when I have to travel, I take the train, I take an awesome book, something that I love to do, which is reading, another way to educate yourself at the same time, and walking and having a podcast. You can educate yourself auditorily. Some really great ways to really do more than one thing and enjoy it at the same time. Now, how do you maintain a humorous attitude and through your workplace? Because I work with a lot of big clients, as I said before the interview, and consult with them. And I walk into some workplaces where, all the employees are in cubes and they're all looking so miserable. It's like, when is Friday getting here? How can they really come to work and be joyful and be really happy? How can they start to do that?
Well, first of all, the active mode is a really important part of that, because you're ultimately in charge of that. But people are more stressed than ever. Studies show that this generation actually is more stressed than the previous generation. So if people say, if anybody ever says, "Hey, you guys have it easy, we had it much tougher," that's really not necessarily so. I think there's more stress in the workplace now than there ever has been. So humor can be real tricky in the workplace, particularly now because things are getting more and more and more politically correct. So The easiest, first of all, one thing never to do in the workplace is use sarcastic humor. Now, even if you're in an office where everybody's sarcastic and everybody seems to think it's okay, that one can really come back to bite you. I've seen it happen. I've seen people lose their jobs because of things they said, and then a year later they were up for a promotion and somebody said, did you know that this guy said this at that time? And then they lost their job. That happened at a place where I worked when I was in the mortgage business. So that, and it does happen. So some people just go along with it, but they don't necessarily like it. Not only that, sarcastic humor puts people on the defensive. So what they want to do is lash back out. Somebody gets put down, they want to come back even harder with something else. And some people might laugh and appear good-natured, but I think deep down inside it does hurt their feelings because sticks and stones may break our bones, but words can break our heart.
And sarcasm, I think, is a kind of mean way to be like, use humor. And I think there's more effective. That's kind of why I don't like pranks, honestly. I think it can be, funny to watch them sometimes. But I often think, it's getting humor or laughs out of someone else's misfortune or making them feel uncomfortable. And is it really necessary to do it that way? I personally don't think that's necessary to use humor in that way.
Exactly. Yeah. Save it for the movies when actors are getting paid for that. But in the real work environment, not so much fun.
Yeah.
I like the things where they celebrate people in a positive way. They surprise them with something really special. I think I don't know if that'd be considered a prank, but it's a positive. It's a show of love where you just shower them with all kinds of good things. So, but back to the humor in the workplace. Easiest thing to do is to let other things be funny for you, but to be extremely careful about what they are. Visual humor is the best. I collect funny photos that I see, or even funny things that I might see, funny quotes that I might see on Facebook. I remember them, and let's see if I can look some of those up right now. There are two things in humor that make people laugh, and one is the element of surprise, and the other one is conflict. And it's actually things that have gone wrong that we can identify with, and that's why sitcoms are funny.
Yes.
Because because we can relate to the situation that's gone bad.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, here's one I saw that I just saw, and it's just kind of funny, and it's clean. It's not that difficult to tell alligators and crocodiles apart. One will see you later. The other will see you in a while. All right?
Yeah.
So it's real simple, and the thing is, if people groan at it, which they probably will, at least it's not offensive, and at least you made an attempt to be humorous, because a lot of your listeners out there are in leadership positions.
Yes.
And humor and leadership are really, really important, much more so than they ever have been. But since we're in election time, I'm going to talk about Ronald Reagan. I'm not getting political at all, but Ronald Reagan was known as the great communicator. And Ronald Reagan was fantastic with humor. I can remember when he was running for re-election. Was it re-election or election against Mondale? Well, that was his first time, wasn't it? Against Mondale, or did he beat Jimmy Carter?
He beat Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, and then he was re-election. Mondale was the candidate, right?
I believe so. See, I was very young, so I think so. Yeah.
Anyway, the thing was that they were talking about Ronald's age. That came up in the debate, and Reagan responds, "I will not let my opponent's youth and inexperience be an issue in this campaign." So boom, that was funny. He took care of it right there. He got shot in office. That is horrible. Yes. But this is how he responded. He saw his wife. He said, "Honey, I forgot to duck." So when he heard that, he said, "Hey, he still has his wits about him." Wits about him. Interesting phrase. Means he still has a sense of control. Yeah. He was getting operated on. He asked the surgeons before they put him out. He says, "You're not Democrats, are you?" So again, we're saying, "Hey, this guy's okay. We're pulling for you. We're not worried." Churchill. Let's go to the other side of the pond. He was at a party, and Lady Nestor said, "If you were my husband, I would surely put poison in your drink." And he said, "If you were my wife, I would surely drink it."
Oh, no!
There you go. So he always had a sense of control. Southwest Airlines, you mentioned flying. I fly Southwest as much as I can. They're not perfect, but at least they actually do, as part of their hiring practice, do look for a sense of humor in their employees. Their co-founder, Herb Kelleher, said, "It's what you do that defines yourself as a leader, not how you appear."
Wow.
How about that?
Yeah.
So it really is a good thing. It really is. You can manage people by fear. You can threaten, bribe, or cajole, but it's much easier to get people to do things when you use some humor with it. Yeah, you put people at ease, and they'll do better work for you that way.
They'll only work for the short term using fear. I've worked in the many years I've worked in corporate. I've dealt with both types of managers and bosses, both dealing using fear as a mechanism and then using humor and good leadership. And you get much more performance out of using good leadership and humor and really rallying up the troops without fear than you do using fear as the main tool. But what I liked you mentioning before that I found very interesting is you mentioned stress. And I know working in the corporate environment, I see more and more people stressed. And I think it's technology. I think technology is awesome. But I'm on lunch, and I take a quick lunch break, get me a cup of cappuccino, one of my favorite things, and I'm just chilling at Starbucks, looking at the window, and I see every single person who leaves the corporate building. And the moment they leave the corporate building, in their palm is their iPhone, and the minute they walk through the door, their head is down, and they're looking at their phone. And I'm like, they're never disconnected. They are never just detached from work and stuff and just being relaxing. And I was like, wow, that's sad. And I think that plays a big part of it. What have you noticed?
Well, that is interesting about the disconnect. I mean, for me, this is the thing about me, and I'll probably get some bad emails on it, but it's the laptop campers in Starbucks. You go in there, all the good tables are taken up by the people who just sit in there on their laptops all day long. It's really hard to go in there and actually talk to somebody. If you want to meet somebody to talk, you can't, because the laptop campers are there taking up all the good tables, and they're probably chatting online with somebody. So yes, we really do have a disconnect like that, and I've got to admit that I'm a little guilty of it myself. I kind of like the idea of texting instead of talking on the phone because it's faster for me, but I think that might be a man thing. I'm not sure, but it is too bad. The handwritten letters, the communication. There are some really good things about it. For instance, Skype, you can talk with somebody face-to-face overseas. I love that. We have lost a lot of that disconnect, and people are extremely stressed. They say 60 to 90% of the doctor's visits are stress-related, 60 to 90%. Wow. And over half of heart disease, a Duke University study says, over half of heart disease is caused by negative emotions and stress. I want to get through this really fast because you did ask me a question, and I didn't answer it very well about how do you get more humor in the workplace. So I'm going to go through just a list of things. You can create a humor file, find some funny things, and file them away. It's very easy to do that electronically. Maybe some jokes. Start meetings with a joke, a little one-liner. It's really easy to Google jokes about any particular subject. If you're a pharmacist, Google pharmacist jokes. You might even do clean pharmacist jokes. I always emphasize clean humor. Make sure that you're not offending anyone. Never, ever use an ethnic group or even if you can avoid a gender referral, like the blonde jokes, for instance, horrible. Do not ever, ever do that, okay? So they're never okay. Maybe an office treasure hunt. That's a kind of a fun way for people to get to know everybody. Make put something funny in an office memo, and maybe put a little thing in there to make sure if they read the memo. Maybe you can even put a thing for everyone who read this memo, text or reply to this email and receive a prize and see who did that. Maybe picture games are fun. Those are real easy to do. Theme days, a humor bulletin board, a place maybe in the break room where you can put up some funny pictures. Again, make sure they're appropriate. Have an office scapegoat. Blame it on somebody like Walter. I worked at a place, this guy Walter, he was the ghost of the office. So blame it on Walter if something went wrong. Create a fun waiting area. If people are waiting for you, maybe put some humor books. New Yorker has great cartoons. The Far Side. Ashley Brilliant is another one.
Those are
put
great.
A picture of your kid on your desk.
Yeah.
The time we didn't take life so seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have a wonderful book you've written called Me, We, and Glee. Where did that come from, that title, and where can people get a copy?
Well, it came from in my talks that people generally say what's going on at your company, and it's generally three things. You know, we want our employees to have a great attitude. We want them to work together as a team, and we want them to have a sense of humor. So, me, we, and glee. My book's called Me, We, and Glee: How to Have a Great Attitude, Work as a Team, and Keep Your Sense of Humor. And it has it's kind of a little workbook style book. You can read the whole thing in a couple hours, which I like because I don't know about you, but I start a lot of books and I don't finish them because I just don't have a lot of time to be reading really thick books. But so this one I like. You can get it at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, any electronic reading format, Kindle, iBooks, and many others. So super easy to find. If you go on Amazon, just look up Nick Arnette, and you'll find it right away.
Yeah, and you're at nickarnette.com, correct, where they can find
Exactly, yes. And Facebook, I post something positive almost every single day. I have a little positive quote up there, so if you want an uplifting message, just check out Nick Arnette, either my Facebook page or just friend me on Facebook, and would be delighted.
Yeah, everyone go check out Nick Arnette for more ways to get humorous in your life and in your business. Now, I have one thing to ask you, because I know very early on you mentioned a little bit about political correctness. Do you think this has caused people to want to be less humorous because they're scared of hurting people's feelings, or they're not sure where the line or where to draw it?
Yes, I do think that that's the case, even for me. Because part of comedy is the element of surprise, and there are just some things that you just have to be so careful. It's just, to me, I think it's really silly, some of the things that the media grabs onto, that I know that you just know that people's intentions weren't to be that particular way, but it gets skewed and gets away from it, can really ruin somebody's career. So one of the things that I see a lot of, I don't know about you, are these people that they do like a funny video for their office, just for the people in the office, but then that gets out, and then people lose their jobs because they say, hey, these people on the job were joking about this, so now then all those people lose their jobs. So again, you've got to really think about you've got to pretty much assume that everybody's going to know about what you do before you do something, and is that going to be okay?
Yeah, and that also brings to mind just online stuff, even if it's not video. People don't realize that anything you do on all of the social media and online, it doesn't disappear. Even if you try to erase it, it exists in cyber universe, and it could come back to bite you on the bun. So yeah, be careful. Well, Nick, I want to thank you again. It's been wonderful and fabulous having you out here today, sharing your gifts and wisdom. Thank you for coming to Savvy Business Radio.
Great talking with you.
Carleen Pettit, author of Flight to Success. Be the captain of your life. Inspiration, motivation, and lessons learned. Flight to Success is the author's journey through 8 airlines, 7 type ratings, 2 master degrees, and motherhood. Flight to Success, intertwined with her stories, are those of others who share their successes, failures, loss, fears, hopes, and dreams. The secrets correlate with many aspects of flight. If you apply the tips in Flight to Success to your daily life, there is nothing you cannot accomplish. To find out more and get your copy today, visit CarleenPettit, PETITT.com. Now here's our interview with award-winning songwriter Eddy Mann. Hi, Eddy. Welcome to Savvy Business Radio. How are you this morning or afternoon?
I'm doing great. It's good to be here. Thanks for passing me on.
You betcha, you betcha. We were put together by my wonderful friend Michael here, and I was really, really intrigued when I heard your songs. They're so inspirational, and you do really uplifting songs to really help people get in touch with harmony and peace, which we could use a lot of right now on this planet, especially in the United States. A lot of turmoil going on with the citizens. But what really drew you to becoming a musician, songwriter, worship leader, teacher, speaker, coach, and husband? What drew you to the life you now live?
Well, I don't know. I never set out to wear all those hats. I was just a painfully shy child growing up, and when I got in high school, I finally had someone, I don't remember who, I really wish I could remember because I owe him or her a great deal of debt. Once I put a guitar on, I had all the confidence in the world, and I was able to express myself And the whole world just blossomed for me. And I couldn't play yet, really. I mean, I was really pretty bad.
Yeah.
But if you're in high school and you can start to get girls for dates easily, and the whole universe starts to change very rapidly for you. So I took to the instrument really quickly, and initially, I don't know how serious I was about it, but when I got my first couple years of college, I got very serious about it and realized that I needed to get out on the road and play full time to kind of get it out of my system. And a lifetime later, I still haven't gotten it out of my system. But I was always brought up in a very positive environment. There was always, a strong faith element in the house, and so I'm very optimistic in the way that I see things in life. And my father, very early on, gave me some great advice. He told me that my life was going to be just full of problems, one after another, and if I could figure out a way to deal with them, then I was going to be happy. That the better I was at dealing with the problems, the happier I was going to be.
Whoa,
and
good advice.
So I've held on to that my whole life. It's a simple axiom. I mean, when you think about it, most things are when you break them down to the purest sense. But it's something I've held on to for most of my life, and I find it a normal way for me to react to things as they occur. Because within a few years of playing professionally, I realized that it was the writing process that really got me out of bed every day. That's really what was inspiring me. So that was kind of a little shift of gears. And 4 or 5 years later, I met my wife, and I wanted my kids to know what I looked like, and I was ready to be a dad. I wanted to be on the floor with them playing and stuff. So, I went back to school and got a degree to teach. So then I ended up having a short season when my children were young, where I taught, and as they got older and started to become more independent, I found my way back into the music business or fray. And I had a pastor at one point that I'd never met, from a church that I had never attended. He just heard an album, heard something in that, heard something spiritually underneath the lyric and the message, and invited me in for a meeting one day, and a couple hours later I was a worship leader, and without really knowing what it was. There really wasn't a complete job definition at that point, except that I was, they were looking for someone to start 2 new services and to build it off of more of a contemporary music type of thing. And so I had a wonderful season there also. So I've never really had a game plan to get from here to there. My outlook has always been to be as prepared as possible so that I could take advantage of whatever opportunities were presented to me. And I've tried to instill that in my children too. If you're creative and there's a certain media that you like to work in, then you need to really work hard at honing that craft. And then as the opportunities come, you just jump on them. You just, take advantage, because you don't know. You may not get another opportunity in a certain area. So you want to be prepared when it does happen. And so I just changed. I don't have a specific, none is more important than the other, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Whatever I'm doing at the moment is the most important thing. And that could be a father, a husband, worship leader, could be on stage performing somewhere in a club or a small venue or a larger auditorium, whatever. Wherever I am at the moment, that's easily the most important thing in my life, and I just operate on that premise.
I love that. Eddie, I love that, because I think so much in my life, I know in the past, I've gotten so hauled up and, I have to do everything. And your dad's advice to you is so important, because I found in the past I would get really upset about the small things and stressed out, and it's all got to be perfect and I got to get it all done. And sometimes, like what I'm seeing from what your dad, the best advice your dad gave you, is just like, when I'm coming across it, don't sweat the small stuff, and whatever you're doing, just put your full attention and focus on it, and whatever you're greatest gifts and talents are, really just focus on that, hone that to make yourself the best you possibly can at it.
You know, I think that the world is, the way the world revolves, it's just one big distraction. Regardless, I think, of what your chosen profession is.
Yeah.
I just think that there's, you know, we have so much going on around us all the time that it's so easily to be distracted and knocked off the path of where you want to be. And sometimes, I mean, the longer you're off the path, the longer it is sometimes to get back on it. So, you know, I'm constantly looking for ways to not block out things, but just to be aware of them. And I'm, because I do so many things, I'm very schedule oriented. I like that in my day. I want to know that I'm going to have an hour of time here in the morning just to work on an instrument and just sit and play, and that usually evolves into a time of writing. I write every day, so I'm not sitting down saying, okay, you have to write a song today, but I have a period of time where I'm going to sit down with an instrument and just be creative. And it may be playing something I already know. It may be working on a scale or something on the instrument that I'm not really proficient at. But that allows me the freedom to have a creative time every morning, and throughout the day I have these little blocks of time kind of laid out, and there's a big 3-hour gap in the middle of the day for me to just be, you know, dad, husband, homeowner, you know, pet owner, whatever it is at that point that the world around me needs from me. I can do that without being frustrated and thinking, wow, I was in the studio and I was working and I had to leave. Well, no, I'm going to have a block of time later this afternoon, and I'm going to have a block of time this evening that I can get in and lay down tracks or just get in there and mix or something.
Yeah. Now, is it hard for you to stick to your blocks of time or go over time? Like, do you get really creative juice and go like, oh, I just can't stop right now? Does that happen sometimes?
Yeah, I think you have to be in the moment. There's nothing worse than turning it off when it's there, you know, when it's flowing. I don't like to have it even in the studio. The writing process for me is very open. Whatever way the song feels like it wants to go, I'll go there. And I grew up listening to all different kinds of music. My dad played jazz piano, and we had a little quintet, and our house always had different types of music playing. So all that stuff's part of the fabric of who I am. So when I write, it just kind of comes out naturally. I don't sit down to write a reggae type or ska feel or a country feel or a you know, head-on rock type thing. But the songs themselves just kind of flow in a direction, and I try to stay out of their way. So if I'm in the studio and I am working on something, or I am in the midst of writing something, I'll look for where the breath of air is to do something else, rather than just stopping in the middle and stopping that flow. You know, it's just a matter of being aware of what's happening and aware of what your whole day looks like, what you need to get accomplished and what you'd like to get accomplished.
Yeah. You know what's amazing to me, Eddie, is that I started out really liking the sciences in high school, lab, physics, all that jazz. Wasn't very good at it because of math issue. My mathematical skills were pretty bad. But I fell into, like you, with music, and I was really a shy kid, and music was like my way to break the ice, just like you with other people, just be able to break the ice and have something to talk about that was comfortable. So music was really my savior in high school. But now, looking back, because after high school I dropped music, picked up opera for a couple of years, studied opera, studied dance, and was going from one kind of creative endeavor to another. And looking back, my mom used to say to me in my early 20s, why don't you just stick to something instead of trying to be a jack of all trades? And I wasn't really trying to be a jack of all trades. I was just really drawn to those things at that time. But the cool thing is, now looking back, I can see how God laid out those things for me on purpose so that it would help build me to where I am today and help me be the best broadcaster and interviewer that I am today. So it's so interesting how things just kind of tie together, and at the end you see, oh, okay, this all makes sense. Has that happened for you?
Oh, absolutely. Hindsight is just such a beautiful thing. When I look back and look at the path that I've taken in life, I've really been pretty good at staying in that narrow area
Mm-hmm.
I haven't strayed off too often. And I've been very fortunate that way and feel blessed that I've been able to do that. Because if I look back, I was more than a proficient musician and band leader before I became a teacher. And my time in teaching, just being a teacher in itself was a blessing to me, because I have such a passion for music that I knew that I wanted to be home with my children, but I knew that I had to find something else I was going to have a passion for. So fortunately for me that I was led down that path, but 2 seasons later, I found myself in a position to be a worship leader, and the 2 strongest attributes you need to be a worship leader is proficient musically and a good teacher. And I had those things without even thinking. I didn't have to second guess in those areas. They came naturally for me. And so I was left with a very simple, it's simple to say, maybe not to do, but basically where I needed to grow at that point was as a spiritual leader.
Yeah.
And but I could focus everything on that at the time, because I wasn't worrying about could I play the music, could I set up the band and rehearse it. All that just came natural. And again, the teaching aspect of it was natural. So when I look at the path, how it was a natural path to follow for where I was now. God prepared me unbelievably for what I do. Even this past weekend, I was out of state. I was down in New Jersey, and actually down at a beach resort down there. And part of the event that I did down there was for a large youth gathering from North Carolina. And it was just so natural to be in a worship environment with them. Again, because of the music background, the worship leader background, but also because all the years that I taught, I just love being around kids in general. So these were young adults that I had a chance to just hang out with and be in conversations with. But there was never a doubt as to whether I was in the right place, doing the right thing. You know, I've always gone wherever that light shined, and I was never a worship leader before. I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I felt that that's where I needed to be. That's where God wanted me to be. So I didn't doubt that I would be successful at it. I just, like everything else, decided I was going to work and hone that craft and that gift to be as good as I could be and be a great servant.
Yeah. Wow. And you know what's really interesting? I don't know if you've had this experience, but I did a bit of teaching at the prodding of my teacher way back in I resisted it. I was just like, no, I can't teach. No, I like to be the one being taught. But what I found interesting about teacher, you would assume, or I would assume back then, that teacher is someone above and everyone looks up to. But what I found about teaching is that it's very humbling, actually. I actually found how much I didn't know by teaching others, and then you could see things from many different angles and perspectives that actually helped me to learn the craft that much better. So actually, it was a very humbling experience. How did the process work out for you?
I think that my approach to teaching was kind of like it was everything else in life. I tend to see the past in what I'm doing all the time. So when I would get a new classroom of kids, I would always see kids that I went to school with it. I wouldn't see them as complete individuals. They all had different personalities. They're all completely different. But there was always something there, some characteristic that would remind me of someone that I went to school with. So my approach to teaching, whatever it was really to teach everyone individually, even though I was in a classroom setting. And I had to adapt that. I had to figure out how to do that. It wasn't always easy in the beginning, and I certainly made mistakes. But it was something I embraced doing. My classes were always different. They weren't the same from year to year. If someone else had it and someone had me the year before, they really didn't know what to expect. Because my approach would be different, even sometimes daily. And I truly understand having second thoughts, because we all have an enormous supply of Moses cards that we throw out all the time and say, we're not good enough, we're not qualified by me, why would you choose me for this? I've certainly thrown that out enough times, but it's just, I've grown. I've grown along the way to realize that I don't need to do that. That if I'm in the right place doing the right thing, then it can't be wrong, and I can't be unsuccessful at it. You know, I could screw it up by not working hard at it, but as long as my heart's in it and I'm doing the best I can and I'm supposed to be there, then it's going to be successful.
Ooh, I like that. I never heard that perspective before, but it makes sense. If you're in the perfect place where God means you to be, how could you not be successful? You have all the tools you need in order to accomplish what you need to accomplish. You just need to set out to really, as you say, focus and really put your heart in it. And wow.
Yeah, you need to stay out of you need to stay out of his way.
Yeah. I was going to say, where does the coaching come in? Because I heard Michael mention that you coach as well. How did that all come into play?
Initially, I was teaching at a Christian school, and they were having issues with the female sports programs. Now, and I had coached some sports and stuff right out of high school when I was going to college the first couple of years, and I really kind of grew out of it. It was all boys stuff, and it was all kind of very ego driven. And I walked into school one day when I was teaching at this on campus, and in my mailbox was, you know, a little coach's packet and a whistle, and I thought, what now? You know, Lord, where are you sending me now? And these kids had known me and knew me in a different light, because when I taught, if I wanted to know the kids outside the classroom. If someone had a dance recital on a Thursday night, I'd tell my wife, let's go see so and so from school. You know, she's got a little dance recital. They would light up like Christmas trees when they would see a teacher or somebody come out. Made me human to them.
Yeah.
So when it came time for this program, they wanted to build this program. It really flourished as soon as I got involved in it, and because it was in the Christian environment, it really lit a fire under me as to the things I could teach through sports. 90% of it was basketball, but I had some wonderful moments through the years with that. Two of the teams that I had coached were invited out to what they actually had a national tournament out in Indiana at Valparaiso University, where they would choose something like the March Madness in college basketball, but they would have 50 schools from around the country gather on campus there and compete against each other, and it was just an unbelievable experience for some of these. The first team I took was only a middle school team, so but it grew. I went through high school and spent quite a few years coaching AAU ball, and there's still a part of me that loves it and would do it if I had the time. I can't commit the hours to a team at this point. I'm just so involved musically and traveling now that it could be, it would, if it resurfaced in my future, it would not surprise me at all.
Wow. Well, so Eddie, from all of the endeavors you've working with kids and being a worship leader and a coach and a speaker, songwriter, musician, what is the greatest lesson? Because when I heard you talk about sports there, I recall not liking sports because it seemed, very, well, I guess from a woman perspective, because we had woman PE, very catty and kind of like, I heard you mention competition really briefly. Can competition be used for good? I mean, was there some lessons you learned through all of those endeavors that could, you could pinpoint and say, hey kids or anyone listening in, here's one thing I really, really learned from all of those experiences?
Yeah, well, I think all of us draw on our past, and we should be have some kind of library of experiences that are part of who we are. So for me, in a musical sense, when I first decided that I wanted to be a full-time musician, I went to a lot of auditions and never got called back. And I could have sat around and thought that it was all the band's fault, or I could have taken a good hard look at myself and said, well, geez, maybe you're not good enough. Maybe you need to practice a little more and become a little more proficient on your instrument. And so there was competition involved there. But it wasn't negative in the sense that I went home and threw my guitar into the bed and quit and decided I was going to do something else. It made me want to work harder. It made me realize that I needed to be better at at this particular craft. And when and what it did, it spurred me on. When I did get out, I always wanted to play with musicians that were better than me, because that constantly made me work harder, and I was constantly learning and becoming better at what I was doing by being inspired by these other players. So I think the same thing can be true in sports, and it certainly can be, in any other walk of life, that we need to be able to compete in a workforce, because that's how everything gets better in life. If we don't strive to get better at what we're doing, we're never going to make advancements in medicine or anything else. So I think that there's an enormous opportunity to teach strength through faith through those opportunities, because even just a lot of the teams I taught were very undermanned. We hardly ever had the best talent or the most natural talent, so we were on the losing end a lot. And in life, that's what it's like a lot. You feel like you're on the losing end of things, and you need to figure out how you're going to respond to that as you get older in life. The older we get, the more responsibility we get. There's less opportunities again to throw that guitar under the bed. You've got to find a way to work through all that, and find out that a lot of times there's gain and loss. Without quoting scripture, but there's a lot to be learned from that. I still have athlete students that still pop up often on Facebook or some social network, and the first things out of their mouth or the first things they're writing are experiences we had together. Either most of them were competitive experiences, and how they've grown and how they've used it and what it's meant to them. So I guess I still use it today, but in a different way. I'm competing against the distractions. I'm competing against just the state of the world. So the competition today is a frame, a mental framework, as opposed to a physical one. I want to be in the right frame of mind each day. I want to work up with a positive outlook, so that when the problem comes up, I can see an optimistic view of it. And that's really what Dig Love was all about. Dig Love was written through a time when I was just reflecting what I was seeing and hearing in the world, and I really wanted to write something that was idyllically peaceful and would maybe inspire people to be compassionate. I saw a world that focused on the one thing that we don't have in common, instead of all the stuff we do have in common.
Yeah, and we have.
And when you focus on, when you focus on that one thing that's not in common, the dialogue stops, the conversation stops. There's no progress forward. Everything just comes to a halt. And I just thought, I never saw the world that way. I always loved being challenged.
It's so fabulous. I had a couple of conversations in the past with people who came on, and the theory of evolution and Charles Darwin, actually, people focus on the fact of competition, survival of the fittest, but actually, Charles Darwin's great work actually focused much, much more heavily on harmony and peace is really what keeps nature moving forward and evolving, as it were. But they don't focus on that. Our culture has taken the competition portion of his studies, which is actually mentioned just a mere couple times, and glossed over the fact that really nature is structured in a way by God to actually work in unison, to work in harmony, and in that way, that's how things grow its best and without getting in its way and growing to its fullest potential. And I found that fascinating. And also, when you mentioned talent, because you said, your team didn't always have the best talent, many years ago I saw a musical on Maria Callas's life, the great opera singer. And I just assumed she was right out of the box, could sing her pants off. And in the musical, she was telling someone, I don't have great talent. I didn't have great talent in singing. I had to work my buns off. I am not the most talented singer. So I always stress when she teaches herself, because she did master classes, to actually let people know that talent can get in the way sometimes, that really to focus on building your craft and realizing that if you're not the most talented, it doesn't mean you're out. You can really be a great singer or a great whatever if you put forth the effort and really work hard at it.
Yeah, there's this idea, and the world fills us with lies all the time. You know, they want us to believe we're some kind of accident. And I was on the boardwalk. I was actually performing in a place off the boardwalk in South Jersey on Thursday night, and I just, I was so caught up in nature. I love the beach and the ocean anyhow. I feel more in touch with nature and God there probably than anywhere else. And I was standing up there in between songs, and I said, you realize where we are right now, what we're doing. We're standing on top of a ball of fire, a spinning ball of fire. That's 2/3 of it is covered with water. It's spinning like 1,000 miles an hour, and we don't feel any movement at all. You know, that's. And I said, but go across to the amusement pier and get on the little tea kettles, and you're going to get nauseous. I said, people are going to tell you that this is all an accident. And I said, it's like there was this dust in it, just these happy dust or lucky dust. And it's just kind of, the more the deeper you get into it, that the sun's like 1.3 million, I think it is, times our size. You get 1.3 million times Earths inside of it. And if we were just a little closer, we'd burn up. If we were a little further away, we'd freeze. But we spin perfectly on an axis. I said, but that's an accident. You can't believe that stuff. It's just, it boggles my mind.
Or coincidence, which is, to me, takes a heck of a lot more faith than believing in God.
Well, see, our gifts are the same way. It's not an accident that we have the gifts we have. It's in the plan, and it's up to us then, as always, to be good servants with it, to work it, to hone it, to being a good servant. I think it's lost on people sometimes that being a good servant is not just spending your money wisely and those kind of things, but if you have a gift to use and you're not working at it and you're not trying to get better at it, then you're not being a good servant with that gift. And so it's all it's all kind of interconnected.
Absolutely. It's so cool. This has been such an awesome conversation. I don't want anyone to leave without finding out where they can get your awesome new album, The Consequence, and also your follow-up to your past album, Dig Love, and find out more about you, work with you, all that jazz. How can they do that?
Okay. Real quickly, the Consequence will be released in November now. Ooh. Because I had in the past, earlier in the summer season here, I sold out of 3 worship albums. And rather than reprint all 3, I took the most engaging songs off of those albums and kind of made them into a compilation called Reprise that's going to be released the first week of September. And this Tuesday is the pre-sale starts this Tuesday for Reprise. The best place to find out about Eddy Mann is at eddymann.com, EDDYMANN. On Facebook, I'm at eddymann.musician, and on Twitter, it's Eddy_man. And I encourage people to connect. I mean, I really do believe that we have the opportunity to share in each other's lives so much more than we take advantage of, especially with technology. It's one of the positives of technology today that we can be helping out each other, praying for each other, just being in conversation with each other. And if you hear a piece of music of mine and you love it, please share what the experience was like. We create art to get an emotion out of people. And if you hate it, please tell me.
No.
Tell me what was so disturbing about it, because out of those, we talked about that earlier, out of the negative becomes positive a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm not offended by that. There's all different kind of people on this planet, and there's all different kind of artists for them to be inspired by and feel good about. So I just really enjoy the conversation itself.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that, because that really is a lesson I've taken to learning myself the past couple of years, that actually criticism can be a wonderful gift and blessing, and can make you better at honing your craft and be a better person if you're able to take it without being offended.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Eddy. It's been a fabulous conversation. I want to thank you again for coming to Savvy Business Radio.
Really appreciate the support. Love to, and look forward to coming back.
You betcha. Join our mailing list today by texting Savvy Radio to find out about upcoming guests and events and receive a free gift, How Podcasting Can Help Increase Sales and Influence in Your Business.